Alrighty, awesome. Welcome, you guys, to the L.I.F podcast. I'm Slava, the host. I'm the head of developer relations, developer experience at L.I.F. So I'd love to get your intros to the audience for people who don't know you.
Okay, so good to meet you. My name is Christian Montoya. I'm the network expansion product lead at MetaMask. I've been working on multiple topics related to adding support for non-EVM networks at MetaMask, as well as our snaps and wallet API and SDKs, sort of like platforms for dApps and how they connect to MetaMask. And also been working with Casa on wallet standards, and recently got involved with the ETH interop forum. So working on how to best tackle these interop topics from the wallet side as well.
Awesome.
And also happy to be here. I'm Bundan. I'm on actually Christian's team. Lead the product for our wallet API, which is how dApps connect and interact with MetaMask wallet clients, and have been leading the evolution of that API. And there's a lot happening in that space. We're working on something we're calling a multi-chain API. We're working on standards that are chain agnostic as well. And then, of course, a lot that's happening with interop in the EVM space. That's really exciting. So happy to be here and talk more about that.
Yeah, and Bundan is actually our main product lead for ETH interop at MetaMask. So I definitely had to bring him along. He's a resident expert.
Okay, awesome. Well, since we already touched on the subject, let's talk about interop. So you mentioned some of the chain agnostic APIs that you're doing for MetaMask. So talk more about that.
I would say one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to ensure that there's like a kind of evolution of our API, which is currently very Ethereum focused. So at its base, we also want to start to have further support for other protocols. So we have MetaMask snaps. We've had that for a while, but we want to use our wallet API to kind of extend that or bring the extensibility of snaps to the API layer. So to do that, we wanted to make sure we're doing it in a standards friendly way and not something that's just for MetaMask. So we've been working with a group at the Chain Agnostic Standards Alliance. There's some folks from Rion that are involved there as well. And I think there's growing involvement from other players as well. And so we've been kind of building in the open there, setting what these patterns should look like for kind of a more chain agnostic wallet. So it's not just, limited to one network. So that's how we're kind of involved at the kind of highest level. And then, of course, even within the Ethereum ecosystem, we're already finding some cracks in the existing APIs around recognizing that we're now in this very multi-chain environment, and really recognizing L2s as kind of native. And so that's where there's been a lot of discussion around things like having chain specific addresses, so we can route different requests to the right places, avoid sort of confusion all the way from protocols to end user experience as well. And then you have a lot that's also happening just around the vision around Ethereum sort of trying to become more unified, feel more like a single chain again. So there's a lot of other standards being worked on to bring that together as well.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest part about interop is there are so many different EIPs, so many different standards that people are trying to do. And it seems like each project is working on their own, but no one is actually coming together to make it genuinely unified and make it easy to use. But what does the end goal look like for interop for wallets?
There's a couple things. One is that, the wallet is at the center of this mechanism that's taking place where it's the user has certain accounts, they have certain assets. The dApp wants to be able to do things with those accounts, right? There's various chains that the dApp is trying to talk to, and the wallet is the intermediary for that, right? And if you don't solve any of the interoperability challenges that we have, you basically end up in a place where, dApps have a bunch of different API interfaces that they have to adopt that could be different for different wallets, right? In order to do different things. They have it becomes very painful, right? To say, we want to support multiple chains, or we want to onboard new networks as they become available. You look at something that's cross-chain, you can look at something like Uniswap, or even something like OpenSea or Magic Eden, right? Which is not just Ethereum related. They also have Solana and Bitcoin and things like that. It's actually very painful. You can talk to the developers from those teams, the amount of work that goes into, something that fundamentally to the user looks like the same thing, right? These chains have tokens and the user can buy and sell tokens. And that sounds very simple, but the actual, like at the protocol level, those different things being so fundamentally different, at some point you have to try to standardize that. And it's really nice if you have tooling that says, okay, it doesn't matter whether you have a token on Solana or on Base or Ethereum mainnet, the interface for you as a developer to do things with those tokens on users' accounts is straightforward, right? We're not there yet, right? And something that people don't realize with respect to Ethereum and with respect to like the rollup roadmap is that people assume that all these L2s are fundamentally the same, and they're not. There's actually like different ways, like different levels of like EVM compatibility and like some different methods and different approaches to how, you actually interact with contracts or you interact with tokens and so forth. Even something like USDC, people assume USDC is the same across every different chain. And it's like, well, there's a difference between one where Circle has specifically deployed their own like USDC infrastructure, and then another chain which Circle hasn't adopted yet, and that team has just deployed their own contracts to allow people to like, have liquidity for USDC. And just even the simplest thing that you might try to do cross-chain, let's just build an app that allows you to like move USDC across different chains. The actual like technical challenge of building that is very difficult, right? And so like teams have started to hit these walls of like, hey, it's actually really painful to do things cross-chain, and like somehow we have to solve this. And I think wallets are uniquely capable to solve this, but it's something where, okay, at the end of the day, if we want to do something, we need the various protocol teams to also, work with us together on it. We need the Ethereum Foundation and other like industry foundations and big players to drive it. And the goal is just to get to the point where it's like, hey, fundamentally what you're doing is just interacting with assets across these different ecosystems. And if we can provide a nice like interface to that, where, underneath that interface, there's a lot of fundamental differences, but you as a dApp developer don't have to think about all those things. That's going to make life much easier for dApp developers.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned it. And that was not an ad for LI.F, but that's exactly what we're aiming to do with the 2.0, with the new Catalyst acquisition, right? And the new Glacius product that we're working on, especially on those interop token standards, right? Everyone has their own token standard, OFT, ERC-20, and others, right? We are trying to unify that into where you can bridge those tokens chain agnostically without slippage, right? One-to-one, if we're talking about stable coins. If we're talking about deploying on new chains, and we said it's like they all operate on different VMs, it's all different compatibility. With Catalyst, it's an alt VM product where we can deploy to new chain irrespective of which VM it runs on, which is a pretty cool thing. But I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about the upcoming Ethereum upgrade. We have a few AIPs there. I know you guys have been very involved in that, right? So we have 7702, 7715, and some others. So tell us first off what 7702 is. We'll start with that one.
Yeah. So I'll give a little bit of context here in that one of the things that 7702 enables is something that has been sort of like somewhat of a user pain point on Ethereum, which is up until now, in order to like authorize swapping a token, right, you have to do set approval, which is one transaction, and then you can actually like move the token, swap it, whatever you want to do with it. And with 7702, it's part of this like roadmap that we've been on, where at one point everybody was thinking, okay, maybe we just upgrade everybody's accounts to be smart contracts, and that would have had a lot of other challenges and pitfalls associated with it, right? Like maybe you don't want your EOA to be a smart contract account, and like which smart contract do you actually use, right? And if you lock someone into a smart contract later on, more capabilities come along. Do you like upgrade that smart contract again? Do you like try to replace, do you then say, okay, now you have to migrate to a different account to get like a better smart contract, right? Like there's a lot of challenges associated with that. So then, people started exploring, okay, what if you could authorize a smart contract to do something on your behalf, right? And your EOA, you don't have to upgrade it. You don't have to move those assets, but just by giving that authorization, now that smart contract can do smart contract account or smart account type things with your EOA and the assets that you have. And so what 7702 allows you to do is set a contract code, right? And set a contract account code where it says, okay, now that smart contract has authorization to do something on behalf of your EOA. And that could be anything that in the past people have talked about with respect to smart accounts and things like 4337, like account abstraction, like batching, like a certain session keys, or setting certain like spending limits, or like authorizing with certain caveats. Like those are things that whatever that smart contract has the capability to do, then you'll be able to do with your EOA, and the dApp can like offer that functionality, right? Mm-hmm. So like one of the like one of the like easy wins right off the bat is that people will be able to do like batch transactions, and they'll be able to say, okay, the user only has to click a button once to do set approval and then swap or trade, like move that token. And it won't be like, hey, how come on Solana I only click one button, but on Ethereum I have to do like 2 transactions and it takes so long, right? So that's like one very easy win, but there's like a lot more that will come with that. Did you want to add anything on that one?
Yeah, no, I think that's covers a lot of the ground.
Yeah.
There's definitely more if you ask questions deeper into it.
Yeah, like there is one risk with 7702, which is, okay, if you authorize a smart contract, if you give it that capability, you are handing, it's to some degree, you're handing keys over, right? Mm-hmm. And if that smart contract is malicious or poorly implemented, it does open up the user to risk. So when we're looking at adoption of 7702 and like how teams are going to go and take advantage of this new capability, the likely first path is going to be, okay, we have like one smart contract account implementation, or maybe like one batch executor implementation that we're going to enable users of our wallet to have access to. And I'm saying like any wallet team is in this boat right now, or any dApp, anyone doing embedded accounts, they'll probably say, we have like 1 or 2 smart contracts that we feel comfortable letting users do like a 7702 authorization to. And then over time, we have to vet more. We can't just like open the door and be like, hey, you can authorize any smart contract that wants to do like a 7702 style authorization. That would be incredibly risky. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is making users understand what they're signing.
Yes.
And so they understand what that contract does. I think it's very similar with the hardware wallet, like blind signing, where users just sign and they don't know what they're signing, right? It's going to be a very similar thing. So interested to us.
It's funny you mentioned that because we just shipped clear signing with Ledger like 2 weeks ago. And the Bybit hack that just happened was a blind signing vulnerability, right? And so the maintainers, the users authorized on that safe that Bybit had all this money in, they did not realize that they were signing a transaction request that was malicious because they were just blind signing. They couldn't even read the content of it. And that is the same thing that happened with the Radiant Capital hack, and it's like, and now they're like, hey, maybe we should disable ETH sign. Maybe we should stop allowing safe users to do blind signing. Maybe we need to upgrade all of these like implementations. And it was one of those like, yeah, this is like, we've had people on our security team have been saying for a long time, like, we just need to stop doing blind signing. It's just so risky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm actually going to be talking to Ledger as well in the podcast about clear signing and their huge initiative towards it. So.
Yeah, and it's super important. And the fact that like Ledger has shipped devices that have like screens where you can actually read the content of the request, even something as simple as like, if you're using a Ledger with MetaMask, you want to confirm that what MetaMask shows in the confirmation matches what Ledger shows is super important. But then even in situations where you're connecting Ledger directly to a dApp, right, that dApp also needs to conform to that pattern and be like, yes, I want to be certain that the thing that I'm signing matches what I see on the screen, because most users aren't aware of the supply chain risk of like, what you see on the screen might not match what's being sent to your ledger, and that's where you get screwed.
Absolutely. Going back to the 7702 a little bit, it is essentially, we're taking permit to and we're applying it on essentially the blockchain level. Would you say so?
Yes, like in terms of like doing permit to a contract, yeah, and having that, yes.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so I know we touched briefly, but you said you're really excited for ERC-7715.
Yes. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So, 7702, basically allows us to take an UA and give it these smart contract kind of capabilities. And with 7715, it's basically creating like a way for users to actually see like permissions that are granted to the like contract and to like sort of interact with that on an ongoing basis. And MetaMask in particular, like we're interested in this idea of like delegations and having that be embedded into our smart contracts. And so like 7715 just shows like it shows how that interface would work both at the like wallet API layer as well as like kind of indicates how this is going to get presented to users, so they understand like how are they kind of granting permissions that are on chain. Like right now, a lot of the permissions are, within the wallet, but now we're actually moving like on chain.
Yeah. So when we look at 7702, it's not really saying anything about what's the interface or what are the capabilities that you can get through 7702. So usually when people talk about 7702, they'll talk about it along with another EIP or, something related to that. So like in a lot of cases, they'll talk about 7702 and 5792. 5792 actually has a set of capabilities. and it has like an interface for doing certain things with 7702, right? So they'll say, okay, we'll have 7702 in Pectra, and we'll have the ability to make a transaction that does a 7702 authorization. And then 5792 is the interface for some of those capabilities that the smart contract can then offer with that 7702 authorization, right? And so 5792 is one that we're looking at implementing, and we're like talking to dApps and seeing like, are they planning to use it, right? And so definitely, if you're like a dApp developer, let us know, because we're like right in this process of gathering this information. But 5792, I would say, has a limited, like a strictly defined set of capabilities, right? And so I think what's going to happen over time is people are going to say, okay, what else? Right? Like, yes, you can write an EIP or, an ERC that has like a certain limited set of capabilities, right? That was 1193, right? Back in the day, right? Here's like certain methods that every wallet should implement, right? So it's a strictly defined set. But then over time, how do you make that extensible, right? How do you then allow developers to offer and propose more capabilities, right? Than what might just be in like one or two EIPs. And so with 7715, part of the motivation of that was, okay, we have a framework for how users can delegate a wide range of capabilities. We call it the delegation framework. If you have a smart contract that conforms to the delegator model, it can do these types of authorizations and offer more capabilities. But then what's the interface for the user to reason about those capabilities? How does the wallet then enforce, like, okay, the user has to know what they're signing, like what we just talked about, and then has to be able to like credibly reason about, hey, do I feel comfortable granting this capability? So 7715 is what we call essentially like a permission system for users to be able to have this wide range of extensibility, and for us to bring in different like developers coming in with smart contracts that want to do 7702 style authorizations, and then have a consistent interface to then present that to the user and say, okay, now users can actually authorize more than just like what 5792 offers specifically. And this is going to be a whole other area where we're going to be pioneering and exploring like how we can do this safely, because at the end of the day, our main priority is that it's readable and it's secure and strictly like something that the user can feel comfortable doing. And we want to do this so that over time, the range of what you can do with your account is uncapped, right? There's like, a broad range of innovation that developers are going to be able to give to users.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. It's a very huge shift in development. It seems like it's a major change for dApps and for wallets, right? How long do you think it will take for us to see major adoption from dApps and the wallets in the space?
I think by the end of the year, you'll see major dApps, like let's say Uniswap, right? You'll see like batch transactions pretty quickly. You'll see like approve and swap in one step, right? That sort of thing I think can happen very quickly. I think the longer term vision of like your EOA functions like a smart account, like fundamentally it just feels like you have a smart account, will take longer. And I think it may take some years to get like a really like rich ecosystem of like developers being able to offer like extensible capabilities. And we might hit some, pain points along the way as we like figure that out together as an ecosystem. But I think like, it's less about like how long will it take to get there, and more that like, I think with 7702, we finally have a path that seems reasonable to get there, because what we had in the past was like, there was no reasonable path to just upgrade everyone into a smart account. And then with 4337, the adoption curve was very difficult. It was like, okay, you have like an alt mempool and you have to like onboard people into using these, abstracted accounts, and like actually like you have to like present something to the user, right? And it doesn't necessarily work with their EOA, right? And this is like, all this value is in these EOAs, right? That's what users use today. And we finally have something where we can say, you don't have to migrate. You just, your wallet will give you the capability to authorize something, and you'll get those extra features, right, in the experience that you already know. And so the fact that we now have a path that enables us to get there, I think the developer enthusiasm is there to actually start implementing it. And it's not necessarily that like every dApp needs to do it, but just the dApps that like really benefit from these capabilities, when they start doing it, it sort of like changes the user experience massively, right? It just changes the paradigm of what it's like to interact with Ethereum dApps today.
Mm-hmm. So does that mean it's going to make 4337 obsolete?
I don't know if I want to.
That's the most controversial
That's a very
question.
spicy question. I don't know. I think it's interesting because, I think if you're a team that was working on a 4337 solution before, like, again, you have a path to adoption now that you didn't have before, right? Like, so I don't think it necessarily makes it obsolete. It just gives us a way to get there, where if you have a smart account implementation, now you can have users opt into that through their EOAs, right? And now it's just a question of you going to the wallet teams or the embedded account teams and saying, or the embedded, like the wallet connector infrastructure maybe, and saying, hey, provide a path for someone to do a 7702 authorization to my smart account implementation, and here's all the features that they'll get. Like before, you were like, we're building this amazing smart account implementation with 4337, and like all you have to do is adopt it. And everyone was like, well, I'm not going to adopt it. So sorry, like that's just a common conversation. It's hard to get dApps to do anything. Now there's a way that like wallets can provide that functionality.
The hardest part about 4337 is every project worked on their own implementation. So there was no unified like account abstraction wallet, right? Or implementation. And then so if the dApp wants to integrate it, they have to integrate each one of them individually, which was a huge pain point. And that's why dApps didn't want to take the workload of it.
Yeah. And it was like, at one point it was like, okay, you could have like an embedded account alongside connecting to existing wallets. But then like account portability was a huge challenge. And it was like, well, what if users want to use like existing wallets? And like, what's the path from like, maybe I onboarded to an embedded account, but then I want to use that. Then I finally want to adopt like, let me go install MetaMask extension and use it. And that was just like multiple pain points that was hard to resolve. So it was like, at one point there was a lot of conversations about, should we have a standard interface for user ops, right? And then it was like, I think if there was a path to more adoption of 4337, we would have gone down that path. But then there was this shift to like, hey, we have a way to like allow people to sort of upgrade their EOAs to have smart account functionalities that will get us there faster. And that's why this shift took place.
I'm excited to see the adoption. It's going to be very, very good user experience. But you mentioned the dApps that you're working with, right? So what kind of dApps are going to be benefiting the most?
Definitely dApps that do any kind of swaps, any kind of trading. Yeah, for sure.
That's for 5792, right?
Yeah, 5792. There's definitely some some potential if you're doing like on-chain gaming, right? And then you have like session keys. You have like a path to doing session keys with EOAs that's really powerful. In the past, you would have had to do like, hey, onboard to a smart account, like onboard to an embedded account, a smart contract account, put funds in there, and then we can give you like session key type functionality where like during the duration of a session, you don't have to do like multiple confirmations. And for any game, that was like really painful because it was like, users don't necessarily want to move their funds, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's like you could potentially get session keys right off the bat with all the existing accounts that people have today where they already have their funds. Longer term, it's hard to say. Like there's like so much like range of possibility. But yeah, I think this is the big realization is that like what we're really trying to standardize and what we're really trying to solve in interop is how you interact with assets. And assets is fundamentally what almost every dApp is doing, right? So like, I think another really good example actually is Aave, right? So the whole like sequence of events, like authorize and then deposit and then withdraw or like add liquidity or whatever. There's like multiple transactions that you're authorizing in the process of interacting with Aave. But in reality, like if I trust Aave and I could just give the authorization to Aave to do a defined set of things, right? Then it makes the whole experience with Aave so much better, right? And like, absolutely, that's the sort of thing. Like, if you're running a service like what Aave is running, you'll get like, user experience improvements very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And where should developers reach you to start integrating these new functions?
Oh, that's a good question.
You said you wanted to reach out and talk to more dApp developers. Yes. Where should they do that?
For me, it's always like just reach out to me on Twitter. I think, Brendan, how best can they get in touch with you?
I mean, yeah, same thing. Twitter is a good way to reach out. We also do have something we call our MetaMask improvement proposals. It's like a way of us building in the open. So anytime we add like a new API, we'll like push that there and talk about exactly how we're going to implement it and like open up any questions for developers who are thinking about adopting those new methods. So that's a great place to sort of like influence if they have like ideas. But yeah. Reach out to us and we'll get you connected to the right places.
Yeah, I would also say we have an ecosystem engagement team that actually like builds relationships with different dApps. So we have one person on our team, Liz Bozzorto, who sort of like owns all these like dApp relationships. I think she's La Latina on Twitter. Like, get in touch with her and she will connect you to the right people. Like all of these topics, like whether it's like wallet API or SDK or like implementing like 7702, 5792, etc. Like, you go to her and she will like connect you to the right people for sure.
You guys heard it. La Latina, reach out to her on Twitter if you want to integrate any of the new EIPs. I think our time is over. It was a pleasure talking to you guys. Learned a lot. I'm sure the people watching also learned a lot. It was a pleasure talking.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thank you guys.